I think I'm going down to the drugstore. And I say, oh, you going to the drugstore? I just repeat. All straight men always repeat what the comedian says.
Dean Martin was one of the most loved American entertainers of the mid-20th century. He diversified as a talented singer, comedian, and actor. His success in the entertainment industry was rewarded by a mouth-watering fortune, which he left behind for his family. However, the question is, how large is this fortune and how is it shared among his family members? Let's find out.
I get a great kick out of performing, period, but I get a greater kick out of performing.
When Dean Martin passed away on 25th December 1995 at the age of 78, his legacy was not just in the entertainment industry, but also reflected in his substantial wealth. For years, many have been curious to know his net worth and the fortune he left for his family. This has sparked numerous speculations among fans and financial analysts about the true value of his estate. But here is the real truth. At the time of his death in 1995, Dean Martin, the iconic crooner known as the King of Cool, had reportedly amassed a substantial fortune estimated at around $30 million. His career has spanned over 5 decades, making his success undeniable. His wealth was accumulated from his early comedy partnership with Jerry Lewis to his solo triumphs as a singer and Hollywood actor. Also, his laid-back charm as host of The Dean Martin Show made him a beloved fixture of American entertainment. Known for his calm voice, suave demeanor, and effortless charisma, he was endeared to millions, and his image remains etched in the golden era of show business. However, after his death, a curious cloud of uncertainty remains about who inherited Dean Martin's wealth. This was because, despite his public popularity, he was intensely private in his later years. He rarely granted any interviews and often avoided the limelight, which meant his personal life information was not made public. This reclusiveness was speculated to be a result of the tragic death of his son, Dean Paul Martin, who tragically died in a 1987 plane crash while serving in the Air National Guard. Naturally, it was assumed that Martin's estate would be divided among his surviving children and possibly his last wife, Catherine Hahn, though the couple had divorced in 1973. However, what happened after his death was beyond everyone's expectations. Before we look into that, it is important to know the details about his assets, properties, and the enormous wealth the music icon and star actor left behind. We would like to begin with his multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion. From 1988 until his passing in 1995, legendary entertainer Dean Martin lived in a beautiful Beverly Hills estate. He bought the house in 1970 for $120,000 and expanded it to a 12,000-feet mansion. This mansion is situated in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. Though a quiet retreat from public life marked his final years, the estate served as a peaceful haven where he entertained close friends, spent time with family, and reflected on his over 5 decades of career. After Martin's death, the estate underwent an extensive renovation. This introduced some features like a stunning moat surrounding the property, a sleek glass-enclosed dining room that invites natural light, and a grand great room large enough to host gatherings of 150 to 200 guests. There's also a waterfall-style bar area within the home. Other features include an outdoor patio with a fireplace, a fire pit, a pool, and a kitchen featuring a barbecue and a beer tap. The result was a transformation that honored the property's glamorous history while introducing bold modern updates. The revamped residence was relisted for an impressive $27.95 million in 2021. Today, the reimagined home stands as a luxurious tribute to the opulence of Beverly Hills. Although Dean Martin is no longer there, the estate still resonates with his legacy. Another luxury apartment he owned was his Brentwood mansion. The home spans 3,256 square feet and features 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms spread out across a single story. This house was also sold after Dean's death for a solid $5.219 million. He also owned a stylish home in Palm Springs, which was sold shortly after he died for $25,000. These homes were not just his residence, but an investment that grew in value over time, ensuring his family would be cared for after his death. Apart from his real estate holdings, like his iconic Beverly Hills mansion, Dean Martin had a vast and valuable music catalog spanning multiple decades. Some of his hit songs include That's Amore, Everybody Loves Somebody, Volare, and Ain't That a Kick in the Head. He recorded more than 100 albums and over 600 songs, many of which continue to generate royalties through licensing, streaming, film placements, and radio airplay. The consistent demand for his music makes his catalog a financial cornerstone of his legacy, providing a passive but substantial income stream long after his passing. These royalties have continued to be a steady source of income for his family. Dean Martin was a major TV personality and actor. From 1965 to 1974, he starred in The Dean Martin Show, a variety television hit that ran for 9 seasons. Residual income is generated from it, which is one of the fortunes his children are benefiting from. There are also syndication rights from the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts, which became cultural landmarks. The roasts featured Martin and a revolving door of celebrities in unscripted, humorous tributes. This has since been rebroadcast and repackaged for syndication, DVD sales, and streaming platforms. Martin has also featured in over 50 movies, which entitle him to movie royalties even after his passing. Some of these films include Western classics such as Rio Bravo, Ocean's 11, and The Silencers. The continual broadcast, streaming, and licensing of those films provide residual income to his estate, even after his death, and maintain his visibility for new generations of fans. Although most of Martin's focus was on his entertainment career rather than on entrepreneurial ventures, he invested so much in business that it later became a fortune for his family. He was a stakeholder in restaurants and clubs, particularly in Las Vegas, during the height of the Rat Pack era. After Martin's death, his brand continued to be monetized through merchandising deals and licensing. His vinyl records, shirts, collector's editions of his albums, DVDs, and other memorabilia bearing his catchphrases and likeness have been sold under his name. The proceeds from those sales have been directed to his family and licensing partners. Dean Martin's possessions are also multi-million-dollar assets that can turn a pauper into a well-established millionaire. These possessions included luxury cars, such as classic Cadillacs and Rolls-Royce, and a wardrobe filled with custom-tailored suits, silk ties, and fine jewelry. They were not just for aesthetics or to create a fashion statement. They became highly valuable collector's items after his death. These treasured items, alongside his awards, handwritten notes, vintage photos, stage props, and autographed memorabilia, have surfaced in auctions over the years. It has commanded high prices from fans and collectors alike. The posthumous sale or exhibition of these items has significantly contributed to the financial well-being of his family. Even after his death, Martin's intellectual properties and image rights were never mishandled. He was not just a man, but a brand whose name, likeness, and persona remain highly recognizable. His images, voice, and persona are owned and managed by his family or its licensing agents. From all his appearances in documentaries and biopics to commercials and magazine covers, Martin's name and likeness have been licensed across multiple platforms. This intellectual property is a significant asset, ensuring Dean Martin's continued relevance and financial impact decades after his death. And it continues to generate income through carefully controlled usage. Dean Martin's financial investments are another posthumous dividend that his family can enjoy. Although details have been kept private, it was speculated that Dean Martin had investment portfolios, including stocks and bonds. Sources also revealed that he had trust funds and savings accounts, possibly set up for his children or estate planning purposes. These and many more of his resources, which may not have been captured, have revealed that the music icon did not leave his family with debts and overwhelming responsibilities. Yet, rather than just leaving behind a fortune, he left a legacy that would settle his family for life. It is also worth noting that before his death, Martin had established a financial structure to manage his wealth for his children. This structure is known as Dean Martin's Family Trust. He had established this trust in his lifetime to safeguard his wealth and ensure proper management of his resources. Among the most valuable assets within the trust was Martin's half of royalty payments, which is a consistent revenue stream generated from decades of music, film, and television work. This included royalties from hit songs, reruns, and syndication of The Dean Martin Show, as well as the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts and various film appearances. Martin's contracts ensured that a portion of these residuals would continue to be paid out long after his death. This necessitated the appointment of two trusted individuals to oversee the management of his estate and the wealth he has amassed over the decades. After Dean passed away on December 25, 1995, the responsibility of managing his estate fell on no one but Mort Viner and Laura Leiser. Viner has been Martin's longtime agent and close confidant, while Leiser is a respected estate administrator and business manager based in Los Angeles. They were named together as the co-trustees of a trust that controlled the major elements of Martin's posthumous financial and intellectual legacy. Having worked with Dean Martin for many years, Viner was not just a manager who understood only the intricacies of Martin's career, but also the value of his enduring brand. He was also familiar with the business arrangements that continued to bring in income after the star retired from public life. His deep understanding of Martin's professional relationships, contracts, and licensing agreements made him a natural choice to help safeguard and administer the estate. Hence, he initiated the deal between Dean Martin's trust and a recording company called EMI to license the late crooner's name and suave image. The executives at EMI believe that Dean Martin's name still retains considerable value. Although EMI has long held the rights to Martin's old songs, the company's marketing chief, Ron Wera, says that licensing Martin's name and the suave image opens the way for marketing everything from Dean Martin home furnishings to men's fashions. This intelligent arrangement, which became another fortune for his family, was only possible through the input of Viner, Martin's agent. On the other hand, Laura Leiser, who had experience managing the estates of other high-profile figures, brought financial and legal expertise to the table. As co-trustee, she was given the responsibility of overseeing the technical and financial operations of the trust, ensuring that the estate was properly managed by legal standards and tax obligations, as per Dean Martin's wishes. Martin's contracts ensured that a portion of his residuals would continue to be paid out long after his death. Therefore, the job of the trustees is to manage those payments and allocate them properly to heirs, trusts, families, or any other beneficiaries. The trust likely also included intellectual property rights, licensing arrangements, and possibly proceeds from merchandising and image use. The trustees played a crucial role in negotiating the continued use of his name, voice, and likeness. The appointment of Mort Viner and Laura Leiser as co-trustees ensured that Dean Martin's legacy would be protected, professionally managed, and preserved for both his family and the many fans who continue to celebrate his work. In 2023, a major deal was made with the iconic artist group to manage his legacy. This aims to introduce Dean Martin to modern audiences by creating merchandise licensing deals and even movies about his life. This project not only keeps his memory alive, but also provides continual income for his heirs. This means that not just his immediate family will benefit from his legacy, but his future great-grandchildren will continue to enjoy it. The allocation of Dean Martin's wealth. The story behind his fortune is far less clear-cut than his on-screen persona. While estimates place his net worth at approximately $30 million at the time of his death in 1995, the specifics of its distribution remain shrouded in mystery. This isn't just a matter of numbers, it's a tale of legacy, family, and the enduring allure of secrets. The simple question about how Dean Martin's considerable wealth was divided often lacks a simple answer. His career spanned decades, encompassing singing, acting, and lucrative endorsements. This all contributed to a substantial fortune. He enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, owning extravagant properties, including iconic homes in Beverly Hills and Palm Springs, which reflected the opulence associated with his celebrity status. The ultimate monetary value of these assets and their distribution after his passing remain unknown. This lack of public information isn't unique to celebrity estates. Many high-profile individuals prioritize privacy regarding their financial affairs. But in Dean Martin's case, the lack of transparency elevates the mystery. Why the secrecy? What happened to those millions? This financial puzzle regarding the details of Dean Martin's wealth distribution to his family members is due to a lack of public information. The secrecy surrounding the distribution highlights the typical difficulties in managing and distributing high net worth estates, especially those of prominent figures. This difficulty could be due to how Martin organized his finances. Instead of a publicly disclosed will, he chose to structure his wealth through a private trust, a legal mechanism that not only facilitates the management of complex assets, but also keeps financial distributions confidential. This type of trust shields the estate from a court-supervised process that often makes financial records publicly accessible. In addition to this complex situation, Martin had 8 children from 3 marriages. Each of these children differs in their degrees of connection to him later in life. Sources revealed that his 8 children, Gail, Craig, Claudia, Diana, Gina, Richie, Dean Paul, and Sasha, all received a share of their father's legacy, but not equally. The distribution was based on individual relationships with their father, life circumstances, and possibly prearranged provisions set up before his passing. This was why Deanna Martin, one of Dean's daughters, allegedly inherited more than her siblings. This is consistent with her public role as someone who holds her father in high esteem. She has actively participated in preserving her father's legacy by recording albums and writing a book. In her memoir titled "Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin Through His Daughter's Eyes," Deanna pays tribute to her father by narrating his impact on society, his family, and the world at large. She also participated in tribute performances and has been the most visible family member in maintaining Dean Martin's brand. This was what endeared her to him more, or made her a logical custodian of his intellectual property. Hence, it's believed that her greater involvement in upholding his legacy may have been reflected in her larger inheritance or responsibility over estate elements, such as rights to his name, image, and music royalties. Dean Martin's children might have inherited a portion of his fortune, but there is someone who has a greater share than the 8 of them combined. It is no other person but Jean Martin. Despite being married to 3 women in his lifetime, only Jean, his second wife, is entitled to a share of the fortune he left behind. However, her share of the family fortune was not received without a legal battle. Jean and Dean were married from 1949 until their divorce in 1973, after 24 years of marriage. Part of their divorce settlement stipulated that Dean Martin agreed to Jean receiving half of the royalties from the music he had recorded before their divorce. However, this 50% share would be calculated after his talent agency, known as International Creative Management ICM, took its standard 10% commission from the gross royalty amount. This means the remaining 90% is split equally between Dean and Jean, 45% each. Dean Martin's longtime talent agent, Mort Viner, who managed his business affairs for years, is the only one who had the legal right to deduct his 10% agency commission from Dean's royalties. However, Mort Viner died in 2003, and Laura Leiser became the sole trustee of the Dean Martin Family Trust. After Viner passed away, there was no longer an agent representing Dean Martin. Yet, Laura Leiser allegedly continued to deduct 10% from the royalties, even though she had never acted as Dean Martin's agent, and no new agency agreement was in place. This was what prompted Jean to file a lawsuit against her. Jean argued that the trust was no longer obligated to deduct agency commissions from the royalties, since Viner or ICM was no longer performing as the Dean's agent. Her claims are as follows: improper deduction of $130,000 in agency commissions by Leiser after Viner's death, and breach of fiduciary duty by Leiser for taking commissions she was not entitled to. She went further to demand the reimbursement of the deducted funds, a full accounting of the trust's financial activities, and additional damages for any harm caused. The court case ended in her favor, and all that remained of Dean Martin's royalties was remitted to her and the other beneficiaries. Dean Martin was truly a man of great wealth, and his family enjoyed every bit of it even after his demise. Background: Dean Martin was originally born as Dino Paul Crocetti on June 17 in Steubenville, Ohio. He has an Italian father known as Gaetano Alfonso Crocetti, who adopted the name Guy upon arriving in America from Abruzzi, Italy. His mother was Angela Barra, an Italian-American from Fernwood, Ohio. His father was a respected local barber, but neither of Dino's parents spoke English. Therefore, Dino spoke only Italian until the age of 5. This left him with an inferiority complex and a fear of speaking in public because he believed he never spoke properly. Due to this situation, he had to adopt comedy as a means of gaining acceptance from his schoolmates and those around him. Martin attended Grant Elementary School in Steubenville, Ohio, and took up the drums as a hobby during his teenage years. However, he was unable to continue with his studies and dropped out in the 10th grade. Life took a harsh turn for young Martin as he began to take part-time jobs to survive. One of those jobs included an amateur welterweight boxer, which gave him the nickname Kid Crochet. Martin also dabbled in illegal activities, including driving liquor across state lines during Prohibition, selling lottery tickets, acting as a bookie, and working as a card dealer and croupier in local gambling joints. After leaving boxing to work as a roulette stickman and croupier in an illegal casino behind a tobacco shop, he became a stock boy and a black market dealer in smuggling illegal substances. This introduced him to the nightlife scene, and soon enough, he began singing in nightclubs. Rise to fame and stardom. While Martin was working as a stock boy, he was also singing with local bands, going by the name Dino Martini. Martin got his break while working for the Ernie Mackay Orchestra. His crooning style of singing made him the center of attention. During a stint with the Ernie Mackay Band, he was noticed by Cleveland bandleader Sammy Watkins, who hired him as the band's featured vocalist. He began a tour with Watkins in 1938 and 1940. This was when Watkins suggested that he change his name to Dean Martin. In September 1943, Martin signed an exclusive contract with MCA to sing at the Riobamba Room in New York, and in 1944 he was given his 15-minute radio program entitled Songs by Dean Martin, which was broadcast from New York City. That was only the beginning of Martin's big break in the music industry. 2 years later, he signed a contract and recorded 4 songs with Diamond Records. Things began to change drastically after Martin met Jerry Lewis during a club engagement in 1946. The two began joking around with each other during their respective acts. They later teamed up as a screen duo in 1947, with Martin playing the straight man to Lewis's clown. In 1949, NBC broadcast a regular 30-minute radio program featuring the pair. That platform showcased the uniqueness of their talents and brought them to the limelight. They became a screen sensation, loved and watched by all. Fast forward to 1950, the duo made their television debut in the Colgate Comedy Hour. The immensely popular Martin and Lewis team made 16 films together between 1949 and 1956. The last time Martin and Lewis performed together was at the Copacabana in New York on July 24, 1956. After 10 years of showing up as an unbreakable and unbeatable team, they went their separate ways. The reason for their split was reportedly due to creative differences. Martin felt like he was in Lewis's shadow. Lewis was the comic star who won the hearts of many and became more popular than Martin, who was merely a mild singer. Martin felt constantly humiliated and chose to leave the team instead. According to biographical writer Neil Daniels, fans of the famous comedy duo looked at them as being a married couple almost. When the breakup occurred, it was like a sudden divorce, and I think it really shocked people because they thought Martin and Lewis would go on forever. After breaking out of this decade of partnership with Lewis, Martin's career as an entertainer must have ended. Although he struggled for a while to maintain his visibility and influence, it wasn't long before he started recording hit songs for Capitol, such as That's Amore, Memories Are Made of This, When You're Smiling, and Oh Marie. He also resumed acting in films, and in 1958, Martin received critical acclaim after appearing with Montgomery Clift and Marlon Brando in The Young Lions. This was usually different from the usual comedy films he featured alongside his partner, Lewis. The success of the movie exposed Martin's talent and versatility, and he maintained a higher reputation as a stellar actor. It was around this time that Martin began performing in Las Vegas with a group of close friends who were members of the legendary Hollywood clique known as the Rat Pack. The group, which included Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford, epitomized the high life with its emphasis on booze, women, and the bright lights of Vegas, but soon branched out from Vegas to the movies. The Rat Pack starred as an ensemble cast in the caper film Ocean's 11, which was released in 1960, followed by Sergeant 3, released in 1962, and finally Robin and the Seven Hoods, which was released in 1964. In his lifetime, Martin appeared in a total of 51 films, including very popular ones like Some Came Running, released in 1958, alongside Shirley MacLaine and Sinatra. Bells Are Ringing, released in 1960 with Judy Holliday. Rio Bravo, released in 1959 with John Wayne. Toys in the Attic, released in 1970. Airport, released in 1970. Cannonball Run, released in 1981. And Cannonball Run 2, released in 1984. The rise to success in Dean Martin's career as a singer, comedian, and actor was marked by numerous struggles and obstacles along his path. Nevertheless, he was relentless until he became a household name, whose voice echoes throughout his generation and beyond. His personal life. Despite Martin's respectable public persona, his personal life was not as perfect as it should be. He was married 3 times in his lifetime and had 8 children. His first wife was Elizabeth Ann Betty McDonald. They were married from 1941 to 1949 and had 4 children together. After their divorce, Dean married Dorothy Jean Junn, a former Orange Bowl queen from Coral Gables, Florida. Their marriage lasted 24 years and produced 3 children. Less than a month after his second marriage had dissolved, Martin, at 55, married 26-year-old Catherine Hahn and adopted her daughter, Sasha. Before his passing, he was briefly engaged to Gail Renshaw, who was Miss World US in 1969. It was also said that Martin had an affair with model and longtime friend Patricia Sheehan. Eventually, Martin reconciled with Jean, though they never remarried. In an interview with his son, Dean Paul, he reveals, "He is not as out to lunch as his image makes him. The truth is that he is very complex. If he drank as much as everyone says he does, he would be dead." Rather, in real life, his children have said Dean was a dedicated father, reportedly making it home for dinner every night at 6 p.m. when the kids were young. This further reveals that, despite Martin's love for women, he remained a dedicated and loving father. His latter days were spent in isolation, which was initially speculated to be a result of his son's death. However, Martin battled a terminal illness, which resulted in his withdrawal from the public. He had been a lifelong heavy smoker and was diagnosed with lung cancer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center on September 1993. He was told that he would require surgery to prolong his life, but he rejected it. Martin chose to retire from public life in early 1955 and died of acute respiratory failure on Christmas Day that same year. He died at the age of 78 in his home in Beverly Hills. The lights of the Las Vegas Strip were dimmed in his honor. Martin is interred at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Dean Martin's legacy extends beyond his wealth, as he was a successful entertainer and a loving father. What can you say about Dean Martin's fortune? Should he have written a will instead of using a private trust fund? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more interesting content. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.